All righty, good afternoon. I hope everyone's doing well today. I am delighted to be a part of this scam series hosted by Aging Together. Thank you, Miss Ellen, for working with us. And I think this is the last of the for the year. The last session we're talking about today, of course, romance scams. And so, by way of agenda, basically, we're going to talk about what a romance scam is, and then we're going to talk about the various ways in which we've seen these scams being carried out. We'll then do some do's and don'ts for online dating, followed by, uh, what you can do if you get caught up in one of these scams. And so, those are the basic agenda items. I'm actually going to start just sharing a little bit about the Senior Medicare Patrol. The Senior Medicare Patrol, it is a program, and its whole focus is to empower seniors, their family members, as well as their caregivers to prevent, detect, and report healthcare errors, healthcare fraud, and healthcare abuse. And we do that through outreach, we do that through education, and we do that through one-on-one counseling. The program itself is sponsored by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and they provide grants to all 50 states to run programs like this in each and every state, plus 4 U.S. territories. And so every state has a senior Medicare patrol. In Virginia, the organization that received the grant to run the program is called the Virginia Association of Area Agencies on Aging. And every region around the state, there are actually 25 regions around the state, and each of them have an area agency on aging. And so we partner with all 25 of those agencies to run this program. So we have paid and volunteer staff in each of those agencies that do outreach, meaning they come out and participate in vendor events where they set up tables and give out resources. But they also do educational programming. So all of the programs that we've done here with Aging Together over the last few months, plus additional programming we have to educate seniors about various types of scams in order to keep themselves safe. So we love to show up to do webinars like we're doing with Aging Together, but we also like to come in person. We'll show up at churches or Lions Club meetings or women's or men's groups, anywhere there are going to be some seniors or family members or caregivers. We like to share this information in person with a 1 hour presentation. We bring resources with us to help make sure seniors have some things to help them keep themselves safe. But we also do one-on-one counseling. So we have an 800 hotline where seniors can call and get free assistance if they feel like they're a victim of a scam. And so all of that is offered. All the services we provide are free of charge. And of course, we want to make sure seniors are both empowered to keep themselves safe, but also have a place to turn to if they find themselves in trouble. So, with that said, that's the Senior Medicare Patrol. We're going to go ahead and get started about talking about romance scams. And so, the question, of course, is what is a romance scam? And basically, it's a form of an imposter scam where people are impersonating a love interest and pretending to be in love with the victim, only to try to steal information or money or somehow get them entrapped into some illicit activity. Uh, and using that person so much as a mark or a victim, but using them for the purposes of money, getting information, or involving them in some illicit activity. And so romance scams are pretty popular, whether we admit to it or not. Whenever I talk about romance scams, I ask people if they're if they've ever been on these dating apps, and everyone tells me no. No one ever raises their hand and admits it. But we know that those dating apps are really popular. People are involved in those dating apps. They're meeting people, some with some great success and some without. And even the worst part, some people are falling into scams. And so, uh, if you look over the years about the number of reports that come in for romance scams, it almost looks like it's declining. So if you look in 2020, the FTC, or the Federal Trade Commission, which collects data on all types of scams and identity theft, reported that they received 54,000 reports in 2020. It looked like that number spiked in 2021, where they received 79,000 reports. And then it starts to decline. But what I'd love for you to see is how much money has been lost. And even though there's a decline in the number of actual reports, there seems to be not much of a decline in how much money is being lost to these types of scams. People fall for these scams all the time, and for good reason. People are lonely, they're in love. And so when you think about these are the things that get reported, so only 79,000 admitted to falling in love and falling for one of these scams. But we know that that's just the tip of the iceberg. So not only are the reports much, much higher because not everybody reports these things, but also the losses are much, much higher because everyone is not telling you what they lost in the process. Some people may have gone through a romance scam process, fallen in love, given away money, only to realize that it was all for the money and gotten out of it and never even realized it was a romance scam. They just thought it was a bad date or a bad guy or a bad girl, when really that's considered a romance scam. When you look at the three categories of the biggest losses for seniors age 60 and above, based on the data from 2000, you'll see that romance scam is the second highest category in which seniors lose money. In 2024, they lost 1.2 billion. The only thing beating that was the loss to miscellaneous investment types of scams, and that was at 1.6 billion. But you see the very next, the number three is business imposter scams, and they only lost 438 million. So it's just a fraction of what's being lost. And so the top two losers are miscellaneous investments and romance scams. And again, there's so many people that tell us, oh, I've never been involved in that. But obviously, it's something that's really taken hold, and people are losing great deals, a great amount of money to it. And not just people, seniors are losing a lot of money to it. The reason seniors tend to lose so much money to these types of scams is because seniors have money. Seniors have worked their whole lives, developed savings, whether it be personal savings or retirement savings, and they have access to that money. And romance scammers know this, so they target seniors. And while other younger people get scammed by romance scammers, they don't have nearly the resources to lose, so they don't lose quite as much. But again, seniors become targets for this because they do have the resources. And this is the perfect type of scam for a scammer to put on a senior because they can scam a senior over a long period of time. They know senior's going to be a little bit harder to scam, and they'll take their time with the senior, ending up getting more resources, as much resources as they can. And so, again, this is something that goes underreported for a number of reasons. One, to be involved in a scam like this can sometimes be heartbreaking, and people don't want to share the details of being heartbroken, especially by someone that they really thought that they were in love with. Also, it's embarrassing to think that you fell for something like this, and really you're a victim. Someone took advantage of you. Someone uh, purported to be someone that they weren't. And for whatever reason, you fell in love with that person and that person took advantage of you. So it's embarrassing to share those types of details. But also, there's a certain amount of victim blaming. I think in some cases, when we've seen romance scams happening, we say things like, well, you should have known better, or I can't believe you didn't see that happening, or you didn't see that coming. And we end up victim blaming when really, we're all susceptible to falling in love with someone. And sometimes that someone could be a scammer, could be after your money. And, again, depending on our own situation, we may be more susceptible than others at the time. And so, a lot of reasons that people don't report this. Again, victims being perceived as naive, that they shouldn't fall for something like this. And what we fail to realize a lot of times is that these folks that are perpetrating these scams are professionals. They've had years of practice, they've learned the tricks of the trade, and they know exactly what to say to victims when they get them involved in these scams. And so we have to give those victims a little bit of grace. These folks are probably not scamming one person at a time. They're probably scamming multiple people at a time. And unfortunately, people are in situations where they become susceptible to this. And so for those reasons, people tend not to report. So again, those numbers that we saw earlier, uh, even though those are big numbers, those are probably just, again, the tip of the iceberg is how many people get involved in the romance scams. So how are these scams carried out? So many times scammers are often connected with people through some type of dating app or some social media site. Anywhere where we might meet people, we might meet scammers. And so these dating apps have proliferated over the last 5 or 10 years, and people are finding great success on them. And so they're widely used and also widely used by scammers. And scammers know that they can find people on these sites and develop relationships with them. What they're also showing is that people are also meeting folks on things like gaming sites where they might be playing digital video games, or whether it be uh, other types of gaming sites where you might be on a PlayStation where you can meet people and through those passages as well as through text messages. If you've ever gotten one of those random text messages that says, "Hey, hello," or it looks like someone that pretends to know you, but really they're just trying to strike up a conversation. And if they can get you into a conversation, then they're hopeful that they can possibly get either information from you or money from you. And so those little random texts that you get where it looks like someone thinks they know you, those are really just the beginning of a scam. People have been trapped in those, either being in relationships or going into business with those individuals or investing in some type of product that that individual eventually started to promote. And so that becomes one of the ways where romance scams have also been taking off. So once people meet these individuals, what happens? So the scammer connects with someone, and then they first appear to have a lot in common with this person. And this is one of the popular scam tactics when it comes to romance scams. You meet someone who's obviously looking for love, and in some cases they're desperate for love, but often hurting for whatever reason, that they don't have a love, or they've been broken up with, or maybe they lost their partner. And this person comes along, and you start to realize you have a lot in common, or at least they want you to think that. If you have a dog, they have a dog. If you have a husband or a spouse that died, they have a spouse that died. And you all began to build a relationship around those commonalities. Although, again, the scammer is just doing what they have to do to get and keep your attention. And so people will encounter this scammer. They pretend to have a lot in common with them right away. And but then they also have some type of reason for not being able to communicate or meet in person. They might tell you that they live abroad, that they are in the military, or they work overseas, or maybe they work on an oil rig, but for some strange reason, they can't meet you in person. It's a long distance relationship. It'll probably always be a long distance relationship, but they have all of these excuses as to why they can't meet in person. And then they have excuses as to why they can't video chat in some cases. A lot of times these scams are taking place are happening over text messages or emails. These aren't even telephone conversations. In some cases there are telephone conversations. In some cases there are video chats, but in many cases these things don't exist. And so they have reasons for that. Oh, I live on an oil rig, and so the Wi-Fi here is spotty. Or where I am, there is no Wi-Fi, no high-speed internet, and so all I can do is text, or all I can do is email, or all I can do is have a phone conversation. I can't really video chat. But to some extent, they want to keep their real identity hidden, and they do that by telling these stories. So what happens next is the scammer will typically take the lead in the relationship, and they fall in love pretty quickly. And they start to get you into this rhythm of this is what love looks like for us. And they kind of control that rhythm. And so, people kind of get dragged into this, and they end up going with the flow. And that becomes one of the worst things that they can do. They tend to acquiesce to what the scammer is leading the relationship, and then they become a passenger in everything the scammer ends up doing. So they fall in love quickly, they define the relationship, and then over time, they start to either directly or indirectly ask for money. And once they start asking, it becomes a repetitive process that happens probably more frequently. Um, these people are very, very patient, meaning that they don't mind starting a relationship in January and really not getting to the money ask till December or the next January, or even more time if they feel like that it's worth it. And so if they get the sense that you have a lot of money, they'll spend a lot of time grooming this relationship before they start asking for money, because they want the victim to feel comfortable giving them money. And so they'll weather the storm, they'll spend the time, they'll do what the victim needs in order to get to that threshold. And then indirectly, they might say something like, "Wow, I've got a big problem. My mom needs XYZ, but I can't get money to her." And indirectly, you might think, well, I can take care of that for you. Tell me what you need. And you start giving them money. Or they may directly say, hey, I've got a bill or some problem that money needs to, I need money to take care of. Can you help me with that? And it starts off very gradual, very innocent, until the person is really starting to use money as a means of taking advantage of the victim. And so they start to ask for money more and more. And then, unfortunately, if they ever get to the point where the money's all gone, then the relationship also is all gone. And that becomes crushing for the victim in that particular situation. Uh, what happens again, the scammer asks for money repeatedly. Um, and in some cases, the money is for basic things that the scammer wants, maybe some you know, trinkets or jewelry or anything tangible. But sometimes they get the individual thinking that they're investing in something. And so, in other words, if I'm the scammer and you're my boyfriend or my new girlfriend, and I get you into a relationship, and then I'm going to tell you about investment that I have, and I'm going to try to get you to quote unquote invest with me. And really, the money that I'm asking for, that I'm thinking that you're thinking is for an investment, is really money that I'm going to put into my pockets, and then eventually tell you that we lost the money. But they try to get them into some investment scheme, but also maybe even some Bitcoin or cryptocurrency schemes. And sometimes these schemes work simply because people don't know enough about them or understand it, and they start to trust the scammer to do what's in their best interest for them. And unfortunately, they end up, again, realize they're dealing with the scammer in a number of ways. So we're going to watch a little video. This is about Leah, who got caught up in a scam. And part of the twist for Miss Leah is that the scammer used AI also to try to trick Leah. And so I'm going to play this for you and let you guys see how some of these play out.
This is Leah. For the last 6 months, she's been in a relationship with this man named Christopher Rodriguez. Except Chris Rodriguez doesn't exist. It's a fake name made up by a scammer in Nigeria. And these pictures were stolen from a man whose name actually is Eric Powell. Now, Eric Powell has nothing to do with this. He has his own life and he has no idea this is even happening. But his identity has been stolen. Clearly not for the first time. And it's been used to scam Leah out of everything she has.
Christopher has your social security.
Yep.
He has your banking information.
Oh yeah, I bought a plane ticket and was going to Florida.
Hello, babe. I love you so much. I love the choices you made, when picking all the colors in your nails. And I can't wait for you to come down to Miami. You are loved, my love.
So, looking at Leah's situation, she had met this individual who was using a fake identity and then used that same identity along with artificial intelligence to put together a video to send to her. Um, and ended up losing thousands of dollars in the process, thinking that she was in love with this individual. And this is simply, it's just not uncommon. People end up in these relationships because it's a lonely world out here sometimes, and for some people. And so they end up falling victim to people who are playing them and trying to get something from them. So when we think about how some of these scams are played out, as I said earlier, sometimes they just ask the individual for money for various things, for various items. Sometimes they get the victim involved in some criminal activity. There have been reports of people who were running businesses. In fact, we'll see a video in a moment of someone who was running a quote unquote business with the scammer, thinking that they were helping their business and really they were moving stolen equipment. Sometimes scammers will end up getting illicit pictures from individuals and then blackmail them to send them money, claiming that they will release their pictures on the internet, the pictures that are somewhat compromising. And so people end up getting blackmailed to send money to various places in order to keep their pictures private. Even money laundering, buying and selling things and sending cash for checks for individuals becomes some of the processes that scammers will use to utilize their victims in order to get money. And then it also plays into human trafficking. People think they're in love and they're going to visit their love that's far away, only to get into a place in a situation that where they end up being trafficked. And we see a lot of that when we talk about the phone calls that people get. A lot of the phone calls that we're receiving from these South Asian countries are often people that have been trafficked, sometimes through romance scams, sometimes through job scams. We're going to watch another video. This is an 80-year-old woman who's telling her story about how she got involved into a romance scam.
My name is Glenda, and I'm 81 years old. In 2014, I met the love of my life online, and he told me that he was a U.S. citizen and was working in Nigeria. He asked me for money to help with his business and help leave Nigeria. Then my love had people send me electronics like cell phones so I could pawn them and send him the money. When I couldn't get the money that he wanted, he asked me to open personal and business bank accounts. Since 2015, bank employees, local police officers, and federal agents told me that my love was a scam and that I needed to stop or I could go to jail. I didn't listen to anyone else but my love, the love I've never seen nor spoken to. Now I don't have a choice of whom I'll listen to. On November the 2nd, 2021, I pled guilty to 2 federal felonies. I'll be listening to the judge now.
So obviously, this is one of the tactics that scammers will use to try to get money out of people. Once they can't maybe get money directly from the individual, they'll set up businesses or have them do illicit activity under the guise of, hey, you're just helping me with my business. You're my spouse, my partner, my love interest. And people, for those reasons, will go into these businesses not realizing that they're participating in criminal activity. And so we want to talk about next some red flags of possible or potential romance scams. Now, I go by the rule around if it walks like a duck, if it talks like a duck. You know, if you start to see any of these red flags and they start to accumulate, then that's going to be a problem. If you see one of these red flags and it's just the one flag, then you might want to ask some more questions. But again, if you get 2 or 3 of these flags, these are huge cautionary tales for all of you just to heed by. And so one red flag is, first of all, the person you're dealing with, they have this supermodel profile, meaning not just the profile picture, but when you look at every picture on their website, are they looking like model status all the time? Now, not to say that, if you're a 5 or a 7 or an 8 that you couldn't pull a 10, but if every picture looks like they're emerging from the water with the light perfectly shined behind them, that could be a red flag. It's something that you want to caution. A lot of the profiles that people choose or create, they choose the best looking male or the best looking female and pretend to be those people because they know people are going to be attracted to them. And so they use all of those great pictures to try to lure people in. And so if their profile pictures and all the pictures they have look just a little too professional, you might want to question that. These individuals, in the process of trying to scam you, declare their love quickly. And if people tend to take over the relationship and you end up feeling like you're being dragged along with it, and then that could be a problem. It could be something you want to think about. They tend to work or claim to work or live abroad or in the military where they can't connect with you directly and meet you in person. That could be a red flag. And then they make excuses for not meeting by video chat or not being able to have a telephone conversation. Again, all of these things, if they start to accumulate, you want to watch out for them. And if you're on a dating app site, one of the tactics that they use is they try to jump off that site quickly. On the site, there's some protections. If you're on one of these dating apps, there's some protections that keep your identity and all of your personal information secure from individuals on the app with you. But once you get off the app, then you end up starting to exchange direct personal information, which gives them greater access to you. So, again, if they're trying to get you off that site quickly, then you want to take your time with that and maybe ask some more questions. When you get to a profile of someone that you might see online, once you meet them, if it doesn't match what you thought, then again, that's a red flag. Just the mere fact that what they're putting out in front to get you to meet them and then who they really are is very different. It's a form of deception. And so if it's very different, even though you may end up liking that person, you might want to take your time. Again, that could be a red flag. And then if people don't keep their promises to you, or they're very vague about the information they're sharing as if it feels very secretive or clandestine, then again, you want to take caution. When people want to keep you isolated, that's also a huge red flag. This is one of the tactics that scammers will often use when they're trying to scam you, whether it's a romance scam or whether it is just a regular phone scam. They try to isolate you, try to get you to make decisions quickly. They tell you not to tell people about them. And so if you're in a relationship, the story may be, well, I have an ex-wife that, if she knows who I'm dating, then it becomes a problem. Or I have an ex-husband that's a bully, and if he knows who I'm dating, it becomes a problem. So don't tell anybody, don't post anything about me because I don't want them to figure it out. Again, that's them trying to keep a secret, trying to keep you to keep them a secret. And the more isolated you are, the harder it is for you to make greater decisions, especially if you're emotionally involved. And so, again, them trying to keep a secret could be a problem. And then again, once they start having these emergency needs for money, those are also going to be red flags. As grown individuals, certainly not every situation are situations that we plan for. And certainly there could be some times where we might have an emergency need. But if that begins to arise and it rises repeatedly, then certainly you want to ask some questions. When we talk about do's and don'ts, one thing we say to please do is research your online date. If I would use whatever means is available to me, Google or Facebook or LinkedIn. If you have a name, I would try to find out as much about that person as I can, just to ensure at least notify or educate myself about who they are, so that I can verify whether or not they are trying to scam me. If people are over complimentary, and I think we all have situations where we feel strange about the people that we're connecting with and we're meeting with. And, our gut is telling us things sometimes, and sometimes we don't go with our gut. I say we should go with our gut, especially in situations like this, especially in matters of the heart, because sometimes our gut knows better than we do, and we have to respond appropriately. And so people being over complimentary can feel a little icky sometimes, and we need to go with that idea and not just blow it off. Um, Always take the relationship slow, and always make sure that your friends know who you're dating or someone knows who you're dating, so that if something does happen, that people will be aware or know to look for you or know where to look for you or know how to find you or know how to connect. But you want to make sure people are aware that you're dating someone and that you haven't met them in person, but this is the relationship. And that way, everything, you have an extra pair of ears and eyes to consider what might be going on in a relationship, even if you can't see it yourself. And then if you're communicating with them, you want to communicate using a separate email or a separate username inside the app, or a different email. You want to be careful about giving them direct information or direct access to you if you met them online or through some type of app. And so keeping an email account that's separate from any important email accounts, such as like your credit cards, your banking statements, having a separate email for like junk mail or communicating with someone on this level might be wise. That way, if they break into your account some kind of way, they don't have access to the important account. So we always say have a second email account. And it's okay to ask questions if things don't add up. If things aren't adding up about someone and their relationship and you don't understand it, and you start to ask questions, if they get upset about the questions you're asking, then that's a red flag. Especially if your intent is just really to get greater asking questions, that's a red flag. You always have the option to ask questions to get more understanding, and you should never feel bad about asking questions and getting more understanding. And folks that make you feel bad about that often have something to hide. So those are some of the do's. Some of the don'ts is don't have initiator security. Initiator security is, oh, I initiated the relationship, so, they weren't really after me to scam me. That means nothing. A lot of times these scammers are opportunists. You may find interest in them before they find you. And so because you initiate it doesn't mean that you're safe. It could mean that he found you or you found him before he found you or she found you before you found him. But just because you're initiator doesn't mean that you can let your guard down. Also, don't be quick to reveal too much personal information. Uh, as the more you reveal to them, the more fodder they have, or the more material they have to blackmail you or manipulate you. So the more they know about you, the more they can use that against you. So be careful about what you're sharing. They may hear something you say kind of randomly, and then hold on to that for weeks until you forget that you've actually said it, and then use that against you, either to get you closer to them or to trap you in a conversation. So you just want to be careful about what you're sharing, especially with people that you don't know well. Uh, Take your time and leaving the dating app. So if you're on an app with someone, take your time. Make sure you're really comfortable making that move. And they're going to give you excuses about why you should or when you should. And if you're not comfortable, it's okay not to be comfortable. If they're not going to honor you being comfortable, they're not the right person. And so there's no fear in losing something. And also, don't send sensitive photos. Uh, this becomes a habit at every age of the spectrum. And so, when you send those photos out, you have no control what happens to those photos next. And so, please, whatever you do, don't send sensitive photos because, again, they can use that to blackmail you. If you don't want everyone to see it, then don't send it to that one person. Some other don'ts is don't send money or pay for things by obscure methods. What scammers will know is that when you pay for things by some of the obscure methods, it makes it hard to trace the money, but also makes it hard for that money to come back. Typically, we pay for things by check, by cash, by credit card, and by debit card. But when they ask you to send them money by wire transfer or send them a money order or gift card or some type of Bitcoin or cryptocurrency, again, those things are very, very difficult to trace, which means that you never know where the money is actually going, who's actually going to get that money. And if you need to, getting that money back becomes almost impossible. And so if they're asking you to send money by one of these crazy methods, then you definitely want to question that because that's telling you that you're probably not really sure who is actually going to get that money, or that the person that you may be talking to, that somehow they're obscuring their identity as well. Don't accept money from them via cash or via checks. You never know where that money's coming from, and you could find yourself in a situation where you are a money mule and not really know it. And so you want to be careful if you've never met them, if you've not seen them in person, if you've never had a real connection with them. And I don't mean emotional, but I mean a real physical, tangible connection, and you don't know who you're dealing with, and you can't, pinpoint where they are. Receiving money from them could be doing you harm that you don't even know about. If they want to buy or send you merchandise, again, you want to question that. And certainly doing any type of business with them, again, all should be big questions for people that you haven't met yet. The same is true with utilizing money resources or services, opening up accounts, taking out loans, signing for mortgages, co-signing for things. All of these become hazards to whoever's involved. And then finally, of course, making investments. If you don't know who this person is, again, you don't want to give them access to your money in any type of way. And all of which becomes ways in which people have lost tons of money. As we showed in the slide earlier, 1.2 billion to romance scams alone, but 1.6 billion to other types of investment schemes. And so we want people to be careful for all of those. So let's say you get caught and you realize that the person you're dealing with is possibly a scammer. What do you do? Well, one of the first things you do is cease contact with them. You want to stop communicating with them. Part of the skill that these individuals have is that ability to explain away anything they want to explain away. And so, whatever your concerns are, if you just give them 5 minutes for a conversation, they know that they can explain away whatever it is the issue might be. If you ever notice these types of people, if you ever try to break it off, they just want to see you in person. They just want to talk to you. If they can just talk to you, if they can just have a few more minutes to explain, they realize they know exactly what your hot buttons are and how to explain this stuff away. And so you want to cease contact with them. Otherwise, they'll be able to get you back into the middle of the scheme. You want to keep copies of all communications you've had with that person if you have at a point where you can restore or save that information, because that could be helpful if you've lost money in the process and getting that money back. If this happened on a dating app or some other type of social media site, you want to report it to that site. Let them know that, hey, this is the individual, this is what happened, these are the circumstances, or this is how he engineered the conversation. And the more people know about that individual, or even the scams or the processes that they've used, the easier it is to keep other folks safe. And then reporting it to, again, your local police if you've lost money, the FBI, as well as the FTC, who collects that information and informs us about that information so that we can keep ourselves safe. And with that, I'd love to open up to any questions if anybody has any.
Does anybody have any questions, or if you would like to put something in the chat as well, you can. It's a lot of it is kind of scary to hear, how many people fall prey to these scams. And actually, there is a question in the chat, and I was thinking the same thing. It looks like mostly women are the victims. Is that true, Sean?
That's a great question. When I looked at the information on the FTC website, they did not have it broken down by male or female, but obviously there are certainly a lot of men that fall victim to this as well. Sometimes there's actually a thing for mail order brides. People get brides from overseas sometimes, but also it doesn't have to be those types of individuals. So men fall for it as well. There are lots of men with money and looking for love, and they end up in those situations. I would think that men are less likely to report it, but certainly it does happen.
Right. Yeah. Thank you. The next question is that you mentioned not receiving money to prevent being a money mule. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. So I don't know who's been in the job market the last few years, but if you've looked on any of these job sites, or you may have even gotten it in a text about these various jobs where, oh, we'll send you packages, you just have to repackage them and send them out, or you have to make deposits into our bank account. A lot of these are scams where people are receiving money either illicit places or from stolen merchandise. And this is all part of the process of washing that money, trying to get the money clean so that it can be used and not be traced. And so, again, in some of these scams, as we even watched with the older woman, even though she was receiving merchandise and pawning it and then sending cash back, what some of these scammers have done is we've heard about some of these check washing scams where people have had their checks washed and then new numbers and new amounts written on those. What these individuals will do will send a check like that to their love interest, quote unquote, and then have them deposit it for them, or send them cash to put into a personal account that they've opened up for the scammer. And so, as many crazy ways or crazy things that these scammers can do to get people to move money, move merchandise, or give them money, these scammers will try it. And so sending them cash to have it redeposited into a different account to kind of wash and clean the cash is something that scammers might do.
Great. Thank you. The next question is, how does law enforcement treat the subject? Are they able to track down
the perpetrators.
It's really difficult. It's really challenging. Depending on how the scam takes place, certainly if it's a romance scam where the two people are in the same city and they know each other and there's a relationship there, um, that's an easier one for a police officer to be involved with. If it's someone overseas that they've never met in person or they don't have any type of real connecting information for that particular individual, then that's going to be a little bit harder. Especially again if they're overseas out of the country because U.S. U.S. Customs, U.S. Law enforcement doesn't have any jurisdiction outside of the country. But if they're able to, and the other part too is then you also have to prove that this was done illicitly. When you agree to give someone money, you agree to give someone money. Um, Whether or not they can prove that it was for a scam, that where they're just giving them money and giving them money, it's going to be really difficult. Now, if there's merchandise involved, if there is some type of other illicit criminal activity, it makes it easier for someone to be prosecuted. But for telling you I love you and taking your money because I asked for it and you give it to me, that's harder to prove for law enforcement that it's actually a scammer.
Yeah, I would imagine that would be very difficult because, like you say, the person is they are giving it freely, but it's certainly false pretenses. But then that it does seem like that would be really hard to prove. So I can imagine that would be pretty tricky.
Tricky, and that's one of the reasons why people don't report it. They realize that, this
Mm,
person asked and I gave it, and, I was dumb, or they might say to themselves, I was dumb for doing it.
mm,
So, I've learned my lesson, and that's the end of it. And so when you think about it in those terms, it happens millions of times, and people don't report it.
yeah, yeah, I can imagine. The next question is, does your office offer any help with this if one is a victim?
Great question. So, unfortunately, we don't have a mechanism for promoting or supporting seniors with this particular scam. We would certainly triage them to, depending on the type of scam, the best places that we would know of, but we don't deal directly with romance scams. So, if you were to call my office and say that you were caught up in a scam like this, I'd want to know the extent in terms of, did you lose money or did you not lose money? And then from that information direct you to the right resource, whether it be the banking institution that was involved in with it you, or whether you wanted to do a police report. But we would not be able to help you directly. We just get you directed to the right place.
But in other instances, other types of scams, you might be able to provide support. Is that what I'm understanding? Or
Yes, ma'am.
is
So, of course,
yeah.
the Senior Medicare Patrol is focused on healthcare scams. And so that could range from anything between you get a bill and you're double billed for something, or you get a
Mhm.
statement from Medicare or your secondary insurance or your Medicare Advantage plan or your explanation of benefits, and there's information on there that's false or incorrect. To I walked into an office and I felt like they were trying to get money from me that they weren't supposed to get from me. All of that, you give us a call and we'll do our best to help figure out what's supposed to happen, get you connected to the right place. We can make phone calls with you, make phone calls on your behalf. But it's a free service that we offer that, yes, if there's a healthcare scam, we can, that's the basis of what we do.
Great. That's very helpful to know. The next question is, do you all work in tandem with Adult Protective Services?
That's a great question. And Tandem is not we don't have a formal partnership, but certainly that becomes one of the resources that we refer folks to if depending on the type of scam that's happening. We have had some calls where we've had to connect folks to Adult Protective Services. So while we partner, it's not a formal partnership, and that is one of the list of the many resources that we connect people to depending on the type of scam.
Great. Um, let's see. I don't see any other questions in the chat, but does anybody else have any other questions for Sean that you can either go ahead and unmute and ask, or put it in the chat. There's a thank you. And if there are no further questions, then I will just say thank you very much. Several people saying thank you and really enjoyed this. It's certainly very informative. Yeah, and I think it's really important for all of us to kind of go out there and talk about these things and raise awareness because I certainly have heard of people that, like my sister had a friend that my sister was telling me about the situation, and I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds like a romance scam. And sure enough, it turned out to be. So I think the more we all talk about it and raise awareness of this is to help people, the better off we'll all be. But it's pretty scary.
Yeah, and
Um,
I think
yeah,
that's the hard part is that we might see it from the outside much quicker than someone might see it on the inside.
yeah,
And that's a hard place to be because you don't want to speak ill of someone's loved one,
right.
but sometimes that almost becomes necessary, and that doesn't always go well. And so, it's a balancing act, and it's one of those things again that on the outside to see that is very difficult.
That's for sure. Well, Sean, thank you so much. This does conclude our four-part series, but again, all of the recordings are available on our website, and Sean is available to folks for presentations at your organization. He's talking about doing in person. So certainly reach out to Sean as well at the Senior Medicare Patrol. Did you have your contact info in the chat, Sean? Maybe put it in the chat before we sign off.
I will do that right now.
Okay, so yeah, just folks, if you want to reach out to Sean directly, or certainly, give Aging Together a call, we can connect you with Sean, that's for sure as well. But I want to thank everybody for being here today, and thank you so much to Sean. And enjoy the rest of your day, everybody. And thanks for joining us. Take care.
Thank you, Miss Ellen.
Thank you.
And I will see you guys soon
We,
at the dinner.
yes, yes. I'm so excited that you're able to come to that. That's
Yeah,
fantastic.
I'm
Yeah,
pretty
that's
excited as
great.
well. And then I'll see you guys shortly after that for the conference, the first
The,
conference.
yeah, that's great. Well, thanks for all your support. We really appreciate the partnership and all the good work you're doing.
Likewise, likewise. Well, we'll be talking about next year too. Yep.
Yes. Oh, for sure.
All righty. Well, you take care,
Thank
and
you,
I'll talk with you
Sean.
soon.
Okay, take care now. All right,
All right.
bye-bye.
Bye bye.